Right? I mean, it'll probably completely obliterate my drawing, but that's okay. Actually, I should probably reinforce some of these, because I know it obliterates the Coley rays, but the graphite will hang around at least a little bit, you know, enough to where I can get kind of a, I don't know, a painted drawing in, right? A drawing with the oils. Damn, I do like how that Gamsol just melts the graphite though. That's pretty rad. Ideas for future stuff. Trying not to be super precious with the drawing, because that often gets me into trouble. But you know, it is a little different when you are trying to do something that's maybe a little more precise, right? Because this isn't huge. I don't know what size this is. 11 by 14, I think. Looks about right. So it's not, you know, it's not big. It's not like doing a big alla prima piece or something. So if I want any of the details, I'll have to get a little more precise. But it's fine. I have reference for my character up, you know, so hopefully I can keep some of this stuff going, but you can't hear when I talk soft. Should I bring the mic up? Because I can't get the mic as close as I normally do. So maybe I'll bring the mic up a bit. How's that? Is that balanced a little better? 'Cause I don't want to have to like yell. I don't know if I'm a master. I'm a little rusty on the oils right now, to be honest. But I figure as long as I don't rush through it, you know, it should be okay. I think. We'll see. At some point. So like this is a lot of times if I need a very precise drawing, I will spray fix it first so that I can glaze over and not worry about it. But in this case, I'm not trying to keep it that tight, so I'm not as worried, and I don't care that much if the pencil like bleeds into the paint a bit, because you know, it has kind of a cool look too. Thing, right? I am using Gamsol. Sometimes, like I've been dabbling with Walnut Oil a bit. I'm just trying to find a good, decent-sized brush to do this with, where it's not too big but not so tiny that I'm just getting finicky. Walnut oil, non-toxic, right? Like, I mean, you can cook with walnut oil, and the nice thing with the stuff that they make for painting is that it's even more refined than the cooking walnut oil. But it takes way longer to dry, so that can be nice if you want your paint to stay wet for a while. In this particular case, right now with what I'm doing, I don't want this stuff to stay wet, like not really wet for a long time. So that's why I'm using Gamsol, even though it is a bit more, you know, toxic. It has fumes, you should have ventilation. I've got my air purifier, like, you know, right down here. You guys can't even, like, really... It's a little different setup with the oil, so I'm still trying to, you know, it's a work in progress. We'll figure it out. Yeah, so I've got my air purifier going and all that stuff. Normally I would have the patio door open as well, but if I'm talking, you know, I don't want to disturb the neighbors. So this is just the underpainting, really, just, and what this helps me do is get a little bit of paint on the surface to kind of knock that linen back a bit. It'll also help me to establish some of the values, at least value grouping, not necessarily the values themselves, but it'll help me establish where my lights and darks are. Unless you're doing tiny little details, good idea not to choke up on the brush, because you're gonna lose all kinds of like looseness that way. I'm gonna adjust the because it looks a bit light on stream, and I want to see if it's not really darkening it, is it? That's okay. Chances are that's actually a little bit, not more accurate per se, but like I'm not painting in super bright light right now. I found when I did that, because I used to think like, no, I need as much light as I can get on this, but I found then my values would be kind of off because the light would be blowing out paint, or like, you know, and your eyes are trying to adjust for all that stuff, and then I start like seeing a little too much color, especially in the lights, where I think it's okay, but then when you take it into more subdued lighting, it just doesn't look right, because then all that color isn't coming out in the lights and they just look washed out. So I've been trying not to paint under really bright light anymore. Trying to keep it somewhere mid. It's way too dark. Way too dark. I mean, it's fine, whatever. It doesn't really matter. That would be in shadow anyway, so not a big deal. By the way, anyone who's curious, my color palette today is Burnt Umber, Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Burnt Sienna. I have a cadmium-free yellow light. So Utrecht recently put out some cadmium-free paints, but that are supposed to be just as strong and just as archival as the cadmium versions, so just less toxic. I say that as I have cobalt blue right here, but whatever. It's whatever we can get, right? So yeah, that's cadmium-free yellow light from Utrecht. This is Indian yellow, got titanium white, ultramarine blue, olive green, cobalt blue, manganese blue, and then this is a French Ardois gray. Most of these are Williamsburg, with the exception of our, I think my white is just Winsor Newton, but our cad-free yellow light is Utrecht, permanent alizarin is Winsor Newton, manganese blue hue is Winsor Newton, and olive green is Winsor Newton, because Winsor Newton makes the best olive green, hands down. Don't even like try for other olive greens, they suck. Everyone else pretty much makes a opaque olive green, right? And it's like very much the green of a green olive. Winsor Newton, I believe, makes theirs just by mixing ivory black and Indian yellow, and both colors are transparent. So this olive green is transparent. It's very dark. I'll see if I have. I think I have another olive green here that is just like nowhere near. Where is it? Where is it? I know I had one. I don't know where it is. Maybe it's in here. Maybe. Help if I bring it where I can reach it, huh? Thought I had one. It's green gold. Well, I don't know where it went. I know I had one. I know it's right around here somewhere, but I was gonna squeeze out a little so you could see just how lame it is. But all I'm finding are like cadmium greens, which is weird because I never fucking use cadmium green. Oh well. Oh well, back to painting. Sorry. No one gets to see the shitty olive green. So yeah, Winsor Newton makes hands down the best olive green. Transparent, dark, nice, warm green, beautifully made. So, process-wise, I don't have a set process really. Like I don't feel like I quite oil paint enough these days to have a set process. I think I used to have more of a process, but now I feel like the way that I see is a little different than what it used to be, so I'm kind of looking for different things. There's so many ways you could start a painting. Some people would just start straight ahead, you know, just start laying colors down and stuff. And I've never quite painted that way. The way that I prefer to paint. What? I don't know what you're talking about, John. The way that I prefer to paint is to essentially lay down tone and then push the colors around, you know? I don't know, that's always kind of been, even with digital, I feel like I do a bit of that. So, works for me. Why no sense messing with it. So this is our character, Fiona. The reason I'm not jumping into the CL painting yet, one, I'm not quite done with the digital piece. I think I'll finish that on Saturday. Probably off stream, just so I can blast through it and get it done. Two, I want to shake off some of the rust with the oils, you know, because that's going to be like a legit painting, and I don't want to. I kept hearing some clicking, and I don't know what the hell that was. Whatever. yeah, that's going to be a hectic painting, and I really don't want to mess it up. Oh. Well, the, Yeah, I guess that olive green is pretty light. So normally she has her headband on, but today I decided, you know what, I'm gonna have it down kind of around her neck, almost like a little, like a thin scarf in a way, because that's the vibe I want today. So the other thing with the underpainting is just kind of getting some texture in there too, knocking down the white. Obviously, if I had spray fixed that drawing, I could have just knocked down that white like immediately, but whatever. I didn't quite have time to. Honestly, it was a last minute decision to actually do an oil painting instead of finishing up the CLs. I was all set to finish that piece up today on stream, and then I was like, yeah, I really feel like painting. so that's where we landed. And so this is just a mix of burnt umber and burnt sienna, just thinned down with Gamsol. Like I said, you could use walnut oil, and walnut oil is great if you're going to be doing like multiple sittings on a painting, and you do want the paint to stay a bit fresh, you know. You can also get a walnut oil alkyd mix, which actually dries much faster. And alkyds they're like resin based. They're fairly non-toxic, all things considered. Don't go drinking it or anything, but they're not like the mineral spirits. But at the same time, Gamsol is nowhere near as toxic as like turpentine. And I think it's less toxic than terpenoid too. I was never a fan of terpenoid. The thing that smells like that is just weird. Right, they have that sort of citrusy one, which weirds me out. So I'm gonna come back in and do some like dark accents and stuff in here to start to kind of solidify the structure and the drawing essentially. This has enough information now that I'm not worried about like losing the drawing. Yeah, it's got enough for me to work with. If I wanted to be super precise on this, no problem, dude. Do your thing. If I wanted to be super precise on this, and it's probably what I'll do with those elves, I would project, you know, I would figure out a drawing, either on paper or in the elves case, you know, figuring out that painting on the computer. And then I would project. I have a little digital projector. It's about the size of an iPhone. It's pretty damn rad. It's not like super high resolution, but it's enough. Definitely enough, especially for something this size. Because it's meant to project on like a 50 or 60 inch surface or something like that. But it's only like 1080p. It's not like 4K or anything. but I would project it on and then do a very detailed drawing and then spray fix the hell out of that so that I don't lose that drawing. But here you can see with the Gamsol, the stuff starts to dry pretty quick, which is nice. And it's actually fixing what's left of the drawing onto the surface, so that's cool. I want a little more texture in here. It's too smooth. I don't like it that smooth. I'm also very curious. I put this gray out, by the way, just because I have not really used it, and I'm very, very curious about it. It's kind of an interesting sort of greenish gray that I think I quite like. It's pretty transparent too, which is cool. But sometimes for more muted tones, if that's how you want to go, it can help to start with a more neutral base color. Yeah, wow, this is interesting. First of all, it's super like thick. It's like really transparent. That's rad. I dig it. So sometimes it can help to start with a neutral base and then just sort of nudge it in the direction that you want. You know, you don't always have to start with like really saturated colors, unless you're someone that likes to paint with really hot colors, you know, and sometimes I do. Sometimes I quite enjoy it, actually. Okay, we're gonna get some darker. They're not gonna be full accents. Sorry, this light is catching some of those. I had angled the palette away from the light. I thought I had angled it enough, but I don't think I did. So these are not meant to be full accents necessarily. But I want them to be dark enough for now to kind of get the job done. Some darks in the hair. You know, she doesn't have like super dark hair or anything. She's a bit of a redhead, though I think I am gonna sort of lean toward maybe a little darker auburn, kind of auburny bronze, sort of, without going like unnatural. You know, I don't want it to be like you know, an unnatural red. What's up, Shane? How you doing, brother? Yeah, so technique-wise, you know, one, strictly speaking, the Impressionists would never have been caught dead painting out of their head, or even using some kind of like photo reference, which they could have at the time. Many illustrators and even fine artists did, you know, Mucha, for example, contemporary with the Impressionists, but used a ton of photo reference. Including the early Brandywine guys, contemporary with the Impressionists, Howard Pyle, N.C. Wyeth, Harvey Dunn, all those guys were from the Brandywine school. So they would do both. They would paint a lot out of their head, and they would paint from life, and they would paint from reference. The Impressionists never would have done that. And I don't even know how much they would have done an underpainting either, like this. They would have really started going right in with the color, Muka was amazing, and he was one of those that could just do a bit of everything. And so you would see him. You can see it in some of the reproductions, but I noticed it when I'd gone to Prague back in 2016, and so glad I went when I did. It was the last year that the full Slav epic was in Prague, and so seeing that in person, one, just absolutely blew my mind. But two, you really saw how impressionist his color use was. He would sit there and do a ton of optical blending where he would lay, 2, 3, 4 colors next to each other, and then when you take 4 steps back, they would blend into this kind of color field that would sort of vibrate a bit. And sometimes it's very subtle, It would be a lot of simultaneous contrast where he would lay different colors at the same value next to each other. And yeah, he would just kind of get crazy with some of those colors. And I mean, it's interesting because I actually think a lot of contemporaries with the Impressionists saw what they were doing with color and sort of adopted it. Dean Cornwell would get very impressionistic with his colors. But the Impressionists, they were capturing life. They were kind of a, I don't know if you want to say a hippie sort of response to the realists, The idea was the same, where they wanted to capture a scene of real life, but the realists were really trying to show it accurately in terms of color and value, and the Impressionists were really trying to capture the feeling of what it was like to be there in that moment, and they were really trying to capture, essentially get as close to almost film or animation as they could in a still image, right? So if they're depicting a scene with dappled light on it, they were really wanting to get the sense that the wind was blowing in the trees and that dappled light was dancing around and all that stuff. And so they had their own goals. But yeah, they wouldn't be doing an underpainting. They would be going straight into the color. But it's also a little different when you have an entire scene in front of you that you're referencing, right? Now, I don't have direct reference for this, which is why I would not go straight into color. It's not digital, where I could just paint around and find what I want. If I did that here, it would just get muddy and I would completely mess it up. So I can't do that. Yeah, I think there was that aspect, though that also extended beyond just the Impressionists. But there was an aspect of being aware that, at least in a subtle way, a painting is three-dimensional, right? Which is why even in the classical sense, they would almost always paint transparent in the shadows and opaque in the lights, right? Because that little bit of opacity builds the paint up, and technically it is maybe a millimeter or half a millimeter closer to you than the thin paint is, you know. But that was something that they were very aware of and would very much do intentionally, you know. And you'll see it even in a painting where, so like on the cheek here that's further away, if that, even if I nailed the color and the value, if that paint ends up being thicker than the paint on this cheek, which is closer to us, it'll look a little off. At least when you see it in person. It might read okay in like a photo, but in person it would look off. And our eyes pick up on those subtle bits, even when we're talking, like I said, a millimeter or half a millimeter. It's just kind of the way that our brain sort of analyzes the imagery and processes it and interprets it. Now I should be a little careful here. I'm gonna lift up some of this. This is not really the time for me to get too dark on some of this painting. Yeah, it's a little because then there's nowhere to go, right? And that's where, if you do want to keep the shadows transparent, I don't care as much about that. You know, a lot of the classical painters or people that even study that school of thought will say, like, never put white in the shadows. Never use white in colors that are going to be in the shadows, right? I think I'm a bit more of a contemporary and modern painter at heart in many ways, and I say, fuck that. If I want something to be a little lighter in the shadows, I'll add white. I just won't paint super heavy, you know, but do what I want. Ah, good call. Stretch. Oh, my pleasure. And yeah, fat over lean, as Jay-Z says, is a good method, and that's basically just saying the thinner paints should go down first because they will dry quicker. What happens is, if you lay down some really heavy paint first, even if you wait for it to dry a bit, you know, like sometimes it'll be dry to the touch, and so then you'll do thin paint on top, but then the thin paint actually dries and seals the surface a little bit, causes the heavy paint underneath to take longer to fully dry, and then you can end up with a cracked surface as that lean paint over the top is already dry and hard, and the stuff underneath is still contracting and moving, you know. So that's kind of what that refers to, the fat over lean idea. Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I love the Impressionists, you know, and I love what they were doing. I do tend to follow, you know, at least the one school of thought where I don't tend to have black on my palette, and not because I think like, oh, you should never have black on there because you never find true black in nature and blah blah blah. You know, my feeling is if black was good enough for Sargent to have on his palette, it's good enough for anybody else. I just don't. Black, especially ivory black, which is my favorite one, it dries so matte, and it'll get matte really quickly. Like if I were painting thin, by the end of my painting session, it would start to matte out, and then all your darks lose their depth, and it's just a pain in the ass. Like I find it annoying. I don't like it. Because then you gotta wait for it to like dry enough to put some retouch varnish on to bring back the depth, and it's just a big pain in the ass. So I prefer to use colors that don't tend to. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of the marks on her face here, because I don't want them. I tend to use colors that generally dry with a bit more gloss to them, with the exception maybe of that burnt umber, but I like burnt umber. I feel like I get minor anxiety if I don't have it on my palette, but alright. I'm not gonna go too tight on this stuff because it doesn't matter as much. Get some of it down there. And as I said, I do have reference of my character up on my Cintiq screen right now, and since she is at least somewhat based on Tiny Girlfriend. I also have a couple pictures of her, mostly just to see what her hair does in different lighting situations, as well as the fair skin. I've tended to paint Fiona a bit more tan, and I actually want her to be very fair skinned. So, redhead. And it'll be a nice contrast with her and her ultimate love interest, who has a bit darker skin, and I just think visually it'll be a fun contrast. I do work with watercolor. I love watercolor. Hello, Linus. Welcome. Super glad you can make it. I love watercolor, actually. And I'll work with it in different ways. Where did that go? Literally, hang on. There are times that I'll paint directly. These were from a few years back, the little watercolor portraits. Kind of here, I'll try and get them a little off the light so they look a little more accurate. Obviously Jon Snow and Daenerys, Tyrion, and it was me playing with her being a White Walker. So yeah, I do love watercolor, and then I'll also do more kind of illustration, drawing it out first, a little more like Arthur Rackham, I guess, because I absolutely love Arthur Rackham's work. So for me, when I do underpaintings, by the way, I tend to kind of go in and out of having it give me the drawing, and then also sometimes just saying, you know what, I don't need a drawing there, because I know how I'm going to approach it moving forward, but I want texture. You know, I want texture where if I paint with some broken marks, that texture is gonna kind of show through a little bit, you know. So that's what I like. Oh, by the way, my water rower arrived yesterday, and I put it together today. I didn't do a full session on it. I just did a few minutes, but that thing is awesome. Super, super happy I got it. I had to get some art done, so, you know, I couldn't do a full-on session because that, you know, then, like, you're all swole and stuff, and then you have no finesse when you're trying to draw, so yeah, gotta be careful, mindful of that. So lift up some of this. This is the hard part, as I start to kind of warm up, and then I see, I'm like, shit, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, I should have done this. Yeah. But it's okay. Part of the process. I'm gonna get into some of the smaller details now, just because I feel like I should. Yeah, I do prefer Rackham over Dulac, but Dulac did some really fantastic stuff. But, you know, if I were to pick, I mean, Dulac was pretty sure he was just looking at Rackham, but so this is where I will choke up on the brush a little bit more if I'm just trying to get some details in there, which I'm a little hesitant to do because I don't know. Let's do it. Fuck it. Too much paint. I don't want these shapes to be really hard. One of the things I love in Sargent's work was how he would do, like, his eyes would be almost completely soft edges. I feel like this is not the right brush to achieve this look with. And they tended to have the feeling that, you know, the person had, like, just blinked, you know, or was about to blink. And he just had these lovely soft edges in his eyes that, one, it's really tricky to replicate if you're not painting from reference. Two, this is tricky no matter what, but but if you at least kind of know what you're doing and you know what to look for, you can get away with it. I'm not there yet because this is literally just an underpainting currently, but hey Nikki, how's it going? Yeah, Rackham is one of those that I come back to frequently. You know, he's one of those that I always saw when I was growing up. You know, you'd see his stuff, and of course it would just like capture your imagination. Just really, really beautiful work. now this paint is drying out a little bit, which is nice because this is sort of what I want, where it's thin and I can sort of start to ghost in these values a bit more. Again, I don't want to go too crazy on the values because I want some of this stuff to show through a bit, so. A Pantheon of Inspiration. I mean, I suppose so. You know, and most of it would probably just kind of come down to really like, well, what am I painting or drawing at the time in terms of like who my main influence is, you know, or who my main inspiration is. Nikki, I don't know if I know, is it a specific book or like, is that the title of the book? Morpho-anatomy? Is that getting into the different morphologies, like the body types and stuff? Which is always a good thing. One of the things that I enjoy about working as a sketch artist is, you know, we end up drawing like whatever actor or actress or actors or actresses are in, let's just say actors, right? We don't need to differentiate. Whichever ones are in the show or the film at the time, you know? And so we get, okay, let that, don't do this at home, kids. Never use your fingers. So yeah, we get to play with different body types a lot, which is a good practice. Even if I don't do it a whole lot in my personal work. That's cool. That is a good practice. Alright, that's good. So these are little details, and then think about some color. Oh man, I joined TikTok yesterday. Weird experience. TikTok is weird. Of course, I got flagged for nudity and had to delete one of my videos. I'm like, damn it. They're like way more strict about it than Instagram is. So there go like half the posts I was gonna do. That's okay. It's just like, it's so different. No, so what's interesting, Shane, with TikTok, and the reason I was like, oh, actually I might join then, is that you can accept donations when you live stream on TikTok, which is pretty rad. You know, I wish you could on Instagram. I would actually use their live stream then. Like, I just think it's a nice thing to do. So that was interesting to me. But what's strange is, like, you know, I'm so used to like, I gotta be careful what kind of music I put on my video, you know, and it's gotta be something that's either super obscure or whatever, so it doesn't get flagged, you know. And then I was doing that on TikTok, and then someone was like, hey, if you want more views, you should use like the popular sounds on TikTok. Like, your stuff will get out more. I'm like, oh wow, that's like completely opposite of Instagram, you know, because TikTok has all these like popular songs and all that shit. Of course, sometimes it's hard to find one that you want that's a minute long. Most of them are like, it's only a 30-second clip, and then I couldn't figure out how, or even if I could put multiple musical clips on top of a single 1-minute video. Oh well. Yeah, I mean, you know, I have a donation option on Twitch, but like it's different, you know. It's like my following is much smaller on Twitch, and I don't do it for that, really. You know, I feel like it's different when you're on one of those little social media, like little meaning huge in terms of the following, but you know, it's all on the phone and all that stuff. Like, it's a little different. It's also immediate. So if you're gonna do a live stream, it's kind of like, it's a bigger deal, right? Like on Instagram with whatever 125,000 followers, if I decided to do a live stream, like, it's maybe a bigger deal than if I'm doing one on Twitch. So even though I have the donation thing on Twitch, I don't really like, I don't tout it. I don't really, you know, I don't have any meters up on my stream showing it. It's whatever. It is what it is. If I was doing this like full time, you know, where I was really wanting it to be part of my living, then yeah, I would approach it differently. But as it stands, it's not really what I do. I'm not doing it to monetize currently, so I do it because it's fun, and I like to share. I like sharing knowledge. All right. I want to just do some of the folds. I know also purists will say you shouldn't mix your colors with a brush. I always have. I have a palette knife. Once in a while I will, if I'm working on a larger piece and I have to like mix up larger batches of paint, then yeah, I'll use a palette knife. But for something like this, where it's a small piece, I don't really see the point in like wrestling with the palette knife in like for a little tiny area. Even though, you know, for the longevity of brushes, it's better to use a knife, but yeah, well, it's just because if you're not careful, then you'll push paint up into the ferrule of the brush, and that you don't want, right? Because then you can't clean that out, and so that's why they say like don't mix with the brush. But I do it, and I mean, I shouldn't. I should probably just get like a small palette knife. I have one, but I had dropped it, and the point got all fucked up. But the reason I say I probably should use a palette knife is because I don't use really cheap brushes, right? I mean, some of these are, let's see here. These are actually a synthetic mongoose. I do have actual mongoose hair. These are rosemary brushes, by the way. So I do have actual mongoose hair, which I love. But then I found that they actually make a very nice synthetic mongoose, which is cool. I'm normally not one for synthetic brushes at all because they tend to have too much spring, and I don't like the feel of them at all. Like not even a little bit. All right, let's start maybe thinking about some color. just get rid of that white. So I don't really need this stuff to be super precise and clean. Alright, let's think about some color. Colors. I do have a palette knife, but mostly I use it simply to do that. Clean off a little bit. That'd be such an awesome band name. Yeah, I love the rosemary brushes, to be honest. I think I have some Trekell brushes here too. I have some nice like sable brushes from Trekell. By the way, I'm painting on a linen panel from Trekell right now. And it's actually mounted on aluminum. So, and it's the quad sealed linen. I figured I would try it. Generally, I prefer my linen panels from New Traditions. And because they have a custom linen that's a super tight weave that I absolutely love. I'm just trying to decide what brush I want to move forward with right now. And I don't want something that's too big. Let's do three. I'm gonna get into the mongoose here. I think I'm gonna get some color on her hair first. It's kind of hair and stuff is sometimes a nice, safe way to just ease into the color a little bit, and you know, it won't be like it'll be a little darker and a little more red. And I will probably start a little easier. Cool that off just a little, at least for the shadows, right? Because I want the light basically to, I want her to be basically front lit. So, yeah, currently I'm using Gamsol, just because it dries a bit faster. Sometimes, depending on what I'm painting and how long I'm going to be painting on it, sometimes I'll use Walnut Oil, just because it doesn't dry fast and it's like natural and food grade, and that's always awesome if you can get away from the fumes in any way. That's a good thing. But yeah, currently I'm just using Gamsol to thin the paint out. It's where I want a bit of texture, and then as I start to, build up some of the lights, then some of that will smooth out a little bit. In the transparent areas, I like to have that texture in there. Yeah, and there are some colors that I feel like to kind of really bring out their, I don't know, their true nature, you need a bit of transparency. Plus, depending on what kind you're using, so I tend to use Williamsburg, and theirs is often a bit heavier on the pigment. So it's actually meant to be thinned down, right? So if you take a company like Old Holland, super expensive, but a ton of paint in those tubes because their pigment to binder ratio is so much higher that a tube of that goes much further than a tube of, say, Winsor Newton, because there's just flat out more pigment in there. So you usually want something to thin it out, some kind of medium to thin that stuff out. You wouldn't want to paint just directly with Old Holland, But I mean, like I used to think that also, simply because it's like they were a bit out of reach, But at one point I had gotten a tube. I don't remember which color anymore, but I was like, okay, I gotta try this out, And it wasn't one of their like $200 tubes or anything, but I didn't like the consistency of it. I was like, oh nope, I just wasn't used to it, And I imagine I could get used to it, but I didn't see the point in like changing my understanding of the way that the paints worked. I mean, hell, there's nothing wrong with them, obviously. Plenty of really amazing painters use the shit out of Old Holland. I think Jeremy Lipking uses Old Holland, pretty sure. Of course, knowing him, he probably gets tubes sent to him. Bastard. I can't complain. Trekell gave me this panel and whatever Trekell brushes I have, so it was very nice of him. But it's not Old Holland. Alright, I gotta consider. So one of the things I didn't really think about was what color light I want. If I want kind of a warm light, or if I want a cooler light. I'm so used to doing warm light, but I don't know. I kind of want to go maybe a little cooler. But he's spitting the cooler. By the way, for anyone that was not here earlier, I'm using. I've got Burnt Umber on my palette over here. I have Permanent Alizarin Crimson because alizarin can be a pretty fugitive color otherwise. So you specifically want a permanent one. This is Winsor Newton Permanent. This is Williamsburg Burnt Umber, Williamsburg Burnt Sienna, Utrecht Cadmium Free Yellow Light, Williamsburg Indian Yellow, Winsor Newton Titanium White, Williamsburg Ultramarine Blue, Winsor Newton Olive Green because theirs is the best by leaps and bounds. What did I say? Williamsburg Cobalt Blue, Winsor Newton Manganese Blue Hue, and this is a weird one that I was trying. It's a Williamsburg French Ardois Gray. It just is such an interesting color, and I have no idea if I'll even use it in this painting, but I was like, I'm going to put it out there just in case. And we tried a little bit of it down here. Super transparent, just really interesting. I'm very curious what I can figure out with that one. Like I said, I have no idea if it'll make it into this painting or not, but it might. What did we say? Maybe some cooler light? Shit. No, I think we're gonna go a little warmer. Not like super warm, but I think a little bit warmer. I mean, the nice thing with light skin, at least, is that it just reflects so much color that as long as you just kind of get the right values going, you can kind of just throw some color in there. But I was thinking more for just getting the lights on the hair. There will be cooler lights because it'll be reflecting the skylight at some point. But the initial part, too dark. The Cadmium Yellow, or in this case cadmium-free yellow light. Utrecht recently brought these out. Recently meaning it might be a few years now, but it's basically supposed to be just as strong and just as archival as Cadmium Yellow, but it's cadmium-free. So I thought I would try that out. I tend to only use that when I'm going into really high values. I don't use it a lot for the lower values. I prefer the Indian Yellow because it's transparent. That's where my love of watercolor shows, is in my love of transparent colors. So some of this is just starting to like build up paint, you know? It's not always like getting right into pushing values around and stuff. In fact, values are something at a certain point you want to approach sparingly. And focus a bit more on temperature, right? It's really tempting to start to push values around and use it to turn form and stuff, but a good kind of rule of thumb is change temperature before you change value, especially when you're turning form, because now in this, I didn't sit here taking the time to set up a crazy value structure, so it's not as big of a deal, but at least I haven't yet. Like, I'm gonna get into the shadows next, and then I will be setting up a value structure, and at that point, you don't want to sit there nitpicking values, and, you know, in the lights, we don't want like 7 different value shifts happening. It'll just look busy and noisy. So what you can do to then subtly turn form within the lights, keeping it still in the light, is just cool off the temperature, right? And that'll turn the form for you. And I'll call it out when I get there. I don't want to be too precious with this spear, otherwise, you know, we'll mess up the flow of the hair as we try and stop. You know, I know the spear's there. I can paint opaque when I get to it. It's not a big deal. And with hair also, we don't actually want to like get in there and paint, you know, every strand. I mean, you can if that's the style you like, you know, if you're into the hyper-realism stuff. I prefer to treat hair more as a singular mass, and usually just as an excuse to frame the face. I love cobalt blue because it is basically just a true blue, you know? It's neither a red nor a yellow blue, and I love that. It can be really nice to just push things around that way. I don't even know if this is gonna... it looks so warm on the stream, like with what I'm saying. That's the thing, like you're never really gonna get a camera that picks up like all the subtleties as much as Apple wants you to believe that groundbreaking, whatever. So groundbreaking, you guys can't even do a proper exposure lock on your camera anymore. That's cool. I might actually get a bit lighter with that. And I want this is another synthetic brush. I got a few rosemary brushes that are synthetics. I don't remember what this one was supposed to be replicating. There's a reason I got it, but I really don't remember the reason. Get and how's everyone's evening going so far, by the way? Everyone's doing grand. It's been good. I mean, you know, I'm oil painting. I can't complain. So this happens to me sometimes where the burnt umber, really for the accent darks, I should go through and do actual accents now that I'm getting into color, right? Because the burnt umber will get a little dead, and it's not really what I would use for a true accent dark. So let's do some of that at least. Yep. Even if I, I'm kind of making it up as I go, which can sometimes get a little nerve-wracking, but whatever. It's not a big deal as long as you don't rush it, right? That's really where you get into trouble. Now, in the past, I've given her lighter hair, and I'm still kind of debating. I sort of want it to be a little darker, but I'm gonna have to. We're gonna have to get legit with these. Highlights, right? I can't really just throw blue on it, but I don't need to in order for it to feel cool, right? Because obviously purple is cooler than, or violet, purple or violet is cooler than the kind of orangey red. So should be able to some of this in. And what this will do for me, and I don't know if it'll actually show up on the stream that well, but I mean it'll show up at least, showing up a little bit, at least as a cooler color, so that's cool. But it'll act as a kind of go-between, so then I can throw something that's a little more blue on top of this, and it won't be so jarring, right? Because we have it, we kind of step it along. Actually want to get too crazy with the hair, but it does help establish some of the lighting in terms of the color and stuff. So I don't want to like leave it untended. The other thing, sometimes I like to put a hard edge on hair, but it's very rare that I do that. I almost always will feather the edge, the silhouette, contour. That's the word I'm looking for, of hair. Because it tends to do that a bit naturally. Now, normally I'll do that more if I have an actual like background color, and I don't know if I will, I might, but if I do, I haven't really considered it yet. So for now, we're just gonna soften. Here, I don't mind a harder edge, just because of the nature of that shape. In fact, I'll probably go in and harden that a little more. Right? All about edges. Hard and soft edges. And cheers, everyone. Got some Balvenie Caribbean cask, 14-year. Delicious. I mean, it's Balvenie that's finished in rum agricole casks, so Can't really get any better than that. All right, I want to get into some shadows. Shadows. Warmer lights, slightly cooler shadows, but I don't want to go too cool. I don't like. I'd done that little oil sketch last night, but that one I was intentionally like pushing the colors, and I don't want to go quite that crazy. Maybe in a more subtle way, but. It's so funny because a lot of times, I used to do a bit of alla prima stuff like when I was in school, and then a little bit outside of school too, or after school, I should say. And I had gotten really used to dealing with, larger bits of color. But, looking at this, I'm like, well, the shadow on her skin is such a small area that I'm just like, I don't even know how to mix up that small of an amount. And so, again, this is where I'm like, yeah, of course I will add white to it. But I won't paint super heavy. I will still try and keep it a little transparent. But especially because she has light skin, right? So that the shadows really can't be dark. And this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to have my palette on the stream, because so much of painting is right here. This is like where the magic happens. Even though it's kind of the boring part. But I'm just trying to, let's see, we can at least put it, it's too dark. I'm waiting, I ordered a wood palette for this, because I tend to paint on a warm ground. I don't know why, I used to be really into glass palettes with like the gray background. I'm like, I'm not painting on this kind of a background. I always paint on a warm ground, so I should have a warm palette. It just makes sense to me. Alright, let's see here. That's a little better. I'm gonna thin it down a little bit though, because I don't need it that heavy. I'm just sort of checking. In the picture I had painted of her before is head on, but I just want to see, like, okay, what's the facial structure I painted? Do I want to change that at all? Might give her a little more kind of cheekbone happening. And this is where I'll be a little more structural for now, just to kind of keep the planes differentiated, right? I think I'm gonna need a little more opacity. See, again, this is why I shouldn't have gotten as dark there, because then when I go to paint and it mixes, there's a little too much pigment there and it'll get muddy. So you gotta kind of maybe be a little more heavy-handed with some of the color in the shadows sometimes. Not a big deal, but it can be a little annoying sometimes. her nose. Sometimes I'll have a slightly, like I'll have a warmer red on the palette. Because alizarin is so cool that depending on the color palette you want on your painting, sometimes it might be a little too cool. I thought about putting it, you know, more like a cad red on it, but I decided, nah, fuck it. Make do without. It is a good idea when you're kind of, you know, painting around in different areas of the face to just vary the colors a bit. You know, it can be more, it can be less, however much. It's a good idea to not just say like, okay, here's a shadow tone for every single part of the face. You know, you can do that as long as you then go back in and sort of adjust things, or you can mix it up, you know, as you're going. So like I had added a little more yellow, kind of just to go just around the eyes there, even though the right around the eyes I will actually get a bit more red, because eyes tend to do that. And as always, any questions, please feel free to ask. And this is also one of the reasons that I'm like not jumping right into that sea elf painting, because even doing this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I'm not supposed to get as dark in those tones. Because now I'm like battling against them, but that's okay. Live and learn. I'm gonna throw some shadows on her arms and stuff, and then get back to the face. I might, I don't know if I want to, might push the camera closer to the face when I get there, but I'm not sure. It might kind of get in my way though with the palette and stuff if I do that. It's the downside with, you know, doing smaller paintings, because I also like to give you guys like as good of a view as I can. You know, like it's one thing if I pulled it down here, but then it would be distorted. And a little bit of distortion isn't that big of a deal, but when it's too much, it can get annoying. These shadows are a little dark, but I mean it's okay because I'll paint some midtones in at some point as well. So, and they'll cut into the shadows, so I do have to kind of keep that in mind. might get some lights on the arms first, actually, just so that I can kind of test them out a bit. Without getting too much on the face. And this is actually where Cad Red Light would come in handy. Especially when you're working if you want to work in high values, right? Like getting really light with stuff, but you still want clean color. That's where those naturally high value colors come in handy. Big time. This is more of a mid-tone, I think. Definitely mid-tone color. But that's cool. It'll help us start to kind of clean up. And you know what? I am going to put some Cad Red Light. Possibly, let's see, where is it? There it is. They look about the same, so we'll try the Utrecht cadmium free red light, because it looks like it's about the same. Sometimes it's hard to tell until you actually mix it with stuff to see if it'll actually mix in the same way. I really don't need a lot of it. Ooh, it's thick. You know, I always got to remember that this is stuff from last night's painting as well, but there are times that I forget that I'm doing a really small painting, so I really don't have to squeeze out that much pigment. So, and I'll just like squeeze out a bunch of it, and I'm like, oh shit, this is enough for like 5 of these paintings. Pretty nice color, actually. I don't mind it. I might cool it off just a little. Sometimes, not sometimes, you always have to be aware, like, how much heat is in the color and whether that's what you want or not. Yeah, white though, I'm not. I don't mind squeezing out too much white, because inevitably, if I don't, I end up having to replenish it. So white is the one where I'm like, whatever. You know, that's why I always have like big tubes of white, right? As opposed to the normal size tubes of paint. So I always get big tubes of white. Alright, let's clean up this skin tone a bit, shall we? And sometimes it might take a couple layers. This is sort of the downside of not spray fixing the graphite drawing, is that graphite kind of got in there. I don't mind the sort of muddiness though, like there's an aspect of that where I probably won't completely get rid of it. What's funny is it actually looks cleaner on the stream than it does in real life. So you guys don't see as much of the muddiness as I am. One of the things I'd gotten that I keep meaning to play around with, but I just, haven't been painting enough, and definitely haven't been doing enough like long form painting, was a few different whites. So I typically use titanium white. It is the most opaque. It's very versatile. But some of the like zinc white, if you go straight zinc white, it dries super fast, can crack if you make it too thick, which is not even very thick, and it can yellow a lot, really quickly. I mean, we're talking within months can turn very yellow. So straight zinc white, I don't really use, but I do have a titanium zinc white, and where if titanium, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if titanium is 10 opacity, titanium zinc is like maybe a 7, and which can be interesting if you're getting into skin tones, especially if you're doing glazing, right? Then that transparency in the white could be your friend. But like I said, I have not been doing enough painting, and especially not long form painting, to actually get into glazing in skin tones. So I have it, but all right, we need a little more color. And this is where, like, once I start kind of getting paint on there, Shane, we had talked about the Impressionists before, and this is where I will get a little impressionistic with colors, and I'll start kind of bringing in various colors into the skin tones just for variety, because it makes me happy. Around too much with the hands right now, but I had initially I was gonna have her just with her arms like down by her side, but I was like, no, I actually want to paint the hands, so gotta keep them in there. Yeah, lead white. I think now they have basically, what replaced lead white? It wasn't zinc, was it flake white that replaced it? I think. Too much yellow. That's okay. Alright, let's get into the face. Let's get back to our face here. Got some colors on the palette we can kind of push around and nudge around here and there. So let's do that. Just making sure, because I turned the fan on. I'm just making sure it's not like affecting the camera. Need some more tools in this skin tone in order to actually sell the kind of type of fair skin that I want her to have. Then you need to have the cooler tones in there. I feel like we often will underestimate just how many like greens and blues we actually can get in there and get away with. Yeah, I think I grabbed some manganese, but I will definitely, just because manganese tends to hold up at higher values and it goes more green, and I just wanted some of that green in the skin tones. Gonna tackle those eyes and work our way out. So we're gonna need a little brush. It is a little tricky doing eyes this small if you want to go detailed. I wouldn't have to. I could completely like indicate these, but probably do somewhere in between. Luckily, I don't actually want the whites to be white, so it's kind of okay. but she also has light eyes, lightish, or like kind of a green blue. So I need at least enough room to play with that. It's hard when you get that small. It's hard to paint thin because then the paint just doesn't want to lay down properly. So we're gonna need to do a little bit more. We're gonna have to get a little more robust. But that's okay. The best meal I had this week. Well, I made, say like cut up some chicken breast and, you know, put like a kind of slightly smoky, spicy Cajun dry rub on it. And then threw that in a frying pan with some diced up turkey bacon, and it was delicious when I put it in a quesadilla with some cut up pineapple and sour cream. And a little bit of arugula. Delicious. Delicious. I think around the eyes, I feel like I'm probably gonna want the darks to be a bit on the warmer side. Like a little bit of a neutral dark, but not too neutral, and erring toward the warm. Yeah, man, it was tasty. I'm holding this brush. I love grilled cheese, man. That shit always makes me happy. It is tricky with eyes this small. Probably shouldn't be sitting here trying to like actually detail these out, but I just can't help it. I can't help it. Just like, I love painting eyes, so even if they're really tiny, it's just, can't help myself. Not sure how like dark I truly want to go, but do it. Alright. But I gotta move that light. Makes the lighting on me not as nice, but when I'm trying to focus, the thing was just getting in my eyes. Accents. I really should have gotten these in earlier, because they kind of help lock the lighting scenario into place a little more. And I gotta clean up these colors. I don't actually usually use burnt umber when I do the underpainting. I don't know why I felt like using it today. Normally I use something like burnt sienna or Italian terra rosa. It's a little cleaner, kind of warmer color. Burnt umber tends to sit somewhere around a dark orange. And burnt sienna and terra rosa go a little more red, and so I feel like they tend to mix with the skin tones a little better. This feels a little muddy, a little too muddy to me, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Especially as some of the paint starts to dry a bit, then it's a little easier to kind of lay down some cleaner colors and push that stuff around a little. I want for her eyebrows to catch some color. I mean, she could have darker eyebrows. Often eyebrows are darker. I feel like they should be showing up with some of the color that her hair is, right? I have not, actually. I've never... I mean, I don't hate to say it, but, you know, I've never had to deal with that, and I draw all the time, you know, like when we're busy at work, I'm drawing for basically 9 to 10 hours straight, sometimes longer. But I have a very light hand when I draw, and I mean, that's kind of the best advice that I could give to someone is, if you're dealing with that, with, you know, hand fatigue, lighten up, you know. It is a different technique, and I mean, I don't know if it's just kind of a natural thing that people, you know, we all kind of have our own ways of drawing and painting. I've always had a light hand, and I've never had to deal with my hand getting tired. I've had to deal with my shoulder, you know, getting tired at times, but you know, found ways around that, just kind of different posture and making sure I get regular workouts in tends to combat any of the shoulder fatigue I get pretty readily. So yeah, I've never really had to deal with my hand getting tired. Alright, so for her skin, I need a bigger brush than that. I think this is a good... Mostly I just want the brush to be big enough to get shapes, but small enough to tackle the individual planes as needed, so... that's kind of all I'm looking at. Starting to get a little bit of some cleaner colors in there. Whew, a little worried there. All right, Nikki. Hey, thanks for joining. If you do try out the compression gloves, I would be very curious actually to know if they've helped. I've seen a couple people bring them up, but I haven't actually discussed it with anyone. So. Sleep well, and we'll catch you next time. Too much yellow. Sometimes I forget just how strong Indian Yellow is. Do you do anything to combat that, John? Like, have you found anything that has helped? What was? Oh, thanks for the cheers, dude. Autumn, thanks for cheering. I appreciate that. I realized I don't have my alerts up on the stream. That's the one I forgot to put. I forgot to put my alerts. Thanks, man. It's what's funny is it actually looks cleaner on stream, but also a little lighter. Like, I think, unfortunately, you guys aren't getting as much of the values as I am. And right now, I'm just trying to clean up some of the colors, because from what I'm seeing, I'm like, oh, they're too messy. Too messy. But some of that was I just had to let some of that paint dry so that I could lay stuff down in a clean, orderly fashion. No, I just totally forgot about it when I was getting the template together for this. I think I thought about it at some point and then it skipped my mind. Fuck, I gotta figure out how I want to paint these eyes, because right now they're looking really flat and not good, and they're so hard to paint that small that I might be better off really just indicating them much more than what I've done. I want to sit here and struggle with the eyes. I just feel like I'm gonna be shooting myself in the foot if I really try and like really paint them that small. This seems kind of silly, but certain dark. Looks like she has lipstick on right now. Gonna have to do something about that. No, the palette's not that cramped. Especially because, like, right now I just need such small bits of color. Plus, I still have this whole bottom area down here. But right now I'm sort of just trying to use colors that I've mixed already and sort of push them around. So I'm gonna need to get some variation in here pretty soon, but thing I want to do with the eyes, I don't want hard edges. Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I'll just clean it off if I need to, or especially with a small painting like this, I'll just like whoosh, like you know, use the paint scraper and just clean a swath off, and then it's like a whole, feels like a whole big area all of a sudden. What I'm gonna have to do for these lights is kind of come the other way and start with some white, because with that really light skin, I mean, there's kind of no other way. I just don't want to do straight white, right? Because that'll just flatten it out. And we don't like flat colors. I might, let me see about, bear with me here. I'm gonna try getting you guys a little closer on this. Set this down where it's not gonna cover in paint. You won't really be able to see the palette, but let's see if I can wrench that thing closed. I think. All right, there. Let's see. Get you guys a little better vantage point on her. Cool. I can still see her. Sorry, it'll be covering my face a bit, but at least I can kind of still see what I'm doing. But since I'm working so small, I figure maybe it'll be, might be better to zoom in on her a little. Of course, a little bit of the palette I'm working on is like cropped off by me. Whatevs. Can't win them all. I think it's getting too chalky. Don't like it. Don't. Meow. Don't. it's hard to say without kind of comparing them directly, but I kind of feel like these cad-free pigments are not quite as strong, like not as saturated, and I kind of feel like they lose, I don't know, some of their color pretty quick when you're mixing. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's a little annoying, I think, but again, it's kind of hard for me to say without doing a one-to-one comparison. Get a bit of that, or like scarf in there just for something cool to I think I might do that. Get like get some of the like teal color of her scarf in there. Just something to kind of pop it out. So we'll get some of the darks first. Or like her headband, right? Which today she's wearing as a scarf. But I think it'll help me see these colors a bit better. I think right, 'cause it's all relative. Not a good idea to try and, unless you have some kind of reference you're going off of, which again, I don't, not anything direct anyway. See, to me, that already kind of changes the vibe of her skin. So, and this is just like darks. Again, live and learn. I probably should have done this earlier in the piece, but whatevs. Sorry. Yellow in there. Initially, or originally, her scarf and stuff were blue. But I just got tired of the Horizon Zero Dawn references. So I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna change it and make it green. At least we can like have it match her eyes, right? Forget how weak manganese blue is. Cerulean is stronger, but I prefer the color of manganese. They're similar though, but manganese has a bit more transparency to it. So I tend to prefer it over cerulean. But I do like them both. They're both quite nice. Quite lovely. Alright. So now this alone, even though I might end up going more saturated with the scarf, I'm not sure. That alone gives a pretty different vibe. To her skin tones. So I feel like we gotta bring in some darker accents here and there now. No, I'm not smoking a turkey for Thanksgiving. It would be kind of fun, but no, I will actually be going to my girlfriend's parents' place, and they tend to do all the cooking. Bring some of this don't have a solution for these. Like all the things I would normally do for the eyes, I'm like, it's just too small. Just too small. I do want to get rid of those hard edges still. And I don't want to just like, I'm tempted to, but I don't want to like just throw in, you know, a highlight on them, even though I think it would help actually add a little depth. They don't always work, mind you. They're fun, but they don't always work for eyes. In this case, she is gonna need highlight on her eyes, but I don't know if that's the fix per se. Might be, and I might have to just like give it a go. Some of the darker eyebrow. The eyebrows are also too hard. You know, it's all looking, it's not quite reading like form yet, and that's what I'm trying to get to. It's tricky when to do this without some kind of direct reference, right? That's where, I mean, there's not much to do other than just kind of paint around until you kind of find what you need. Needs a bit more. I'm gonna have to amp up the cast shadow, you know, under her nose for sure. need to practice painting really light skin tones. Because I'm like, kind of... I mean, like, really light, because that's not how this is reading right now. This... Yeah, it doesn't have the, like... sort of alabaster quality that I want. Like, it's not even close. And it looks... I mean, this... I've done all this painting, and this is basically the same as this. I'm like, cool, so I could have just left the underpainting and gotten to the same place. So, but I think part of it also is that, again, because all this stuff is relative, I'm not treating the darks properly. Let's get... First of all, I'm gonna try amping up the shadows a bit. Right. That cast shadow there. Because right now, like, there's very little true value grouping happening, at least a lot less than what I initially wanted. So let's bring it around to get a little more of a real sense of light in the way that I want. Jeez, Daniel, do it right. I really should have done the underpainting in a warmer color. I think it would have helped me a bit. I was fighting against it quite a lot, and I should not have been battling it quite so much. Hairline, cooler around the hairline. Always cooler. So I should do a study, at least a study, probably a couple studies of people with very light skin, but also I'll probably look at, you know, other paintings where people have, where artists have depicted that, just to see how they tackled some of the colors. It's coming along. The shadows actually helped a lot, I think. Because part of the problem was I just kept trying to go lighter and lighter and lighter, because I wasn't feeling light enough, right? And obviously that's not really the best way to go. Alright, Jay-Z. Always a pleasure, my friend. And I will do my best to not fuck it up. And I make no promises. No. Again, as long as I don't rush, you know, I think as long as I take my time to consider, we should be okay. She's feeling better. She is feeling better, I will say. Gotta be careful with some of those hard edges. Hard edges can flatten the hell out of a form if they're not placed right. Yeah, we don't want that. You know what we do want is a little bit of light play. Get a little bit of illumination in some of these areas, right? Make us feel like there's some light bouncing around, and I don't know if you guys can really see that or not, but I sure can. Is feeling much better. Much better. Like the light eyes. It's kind of fun. Spark in the eye. Maybe. Shit, I'm gonna have to. You can do it. Overdo it. Boom. Can you guys even see that little spark, or is it like just smaller than a pixel now? That's where, like, if you're gonna put it down, just put it down, don't touch it. Done. That part is done anyway. Obviously the painting is not done, but it's always an interesting kind of decision in terms of like how big to paint, you know, because it all sort of depends on what kinds of details you want to focus on, and it can get tricky if you paint too small. You have to kind of adjust the types of details. Also, we're having a nice sable brush. Comes in handy. Little bit of painting. She has like a leather vest, which is, lucky for me, pretty much just burnt sienna. Actually, I'll add a little bit of burnt umber just to kick it down some. I'm not going to go crazy on it today, but figure we'll get into at least some that might be a little too. I don't tend to paint the clothing and all that stuff like super opaque. I mean, with her shirt, I probably will go much more opaque because she basically has like I don't know, like an off-white kind of linen shirt. So I will probably go a bit opaque. Also, this is helping me to see that I need to push the color of her hair further, like at least bring out some highlights to kind of call a little more attention to the redheadedness. There are details in her vest that I'm not gonna worry about just yet because she has like this little flower that she's kind of embroidered on, and there's some stitching and stuff. And, I feel like that'll just, the flower I'll need to wait for this to dry anyway to get that on there. Treat it a little more like it's reflecting the sky or something. Yes, she does. That's kind of the idea, though. Like, this character is sort of, not sort of, is very much based on her. So I'm okay with her looking like Tiny Girlfriend. I mean, I'm like, I have a couple pictures of her up, mostly just so I can kind of see what her hair does. They're not at the same angle, you know, but let's try. I want to get some hotter sort of highlights in her hair, and then I'll probably call it a night. I've been going to bed way too late, like midnight, and then I'm still waking up at like 6:45. Probably not the best. Not the best schedule. Yeah, I gotta say, I still prefer the actual cadmiums. I know they're, you know, unhealthy as fuck, but I feel like they get me to the color that I want. This one is kind of weak. Color doesn't go very far. So, yeah, a little bit of heat in here. No, I don't want to go too crazy. Might still cool it off a little, but this one, I need to differentiate it from that burnt sienna, so I think we might actually just, who cares, it's fantasy, right? A little alizarin crimson in there. Cool it off a little. I don't know if this will really do it. I mean, I might have to just go a little crazy and just throw some, like, yeah, that's not gonna get it done. Shit. It doesn't need much. I think it mostly just needs some separation. Probably mostly just where it's meeting the bedtime reminder. Where it's meeting the vest, right? Where it's meeting that burnt sienna. I think that's mostly where it needs some separation. So we are gonna go hot with it. And just say, you know what? Fuck it. I may also need to let it dry more to get like a really clean kind of color, because this is gonna blend in with the stuff under it and it's gonna hinder me. But I don't mind the hot highlights in there. It's kind of fun. Just from a painting standpoint, right? We don't have to worry about it being like hyper real. The panel is 11 by 14, I think. Pretty sure. Like that cool red that we got in there, though. That's kind of fun. Oh, it is small. That was where some of this struggle came in, but I mean, even if I were to do, originally that sea elf painting was going to be 16 by 20, but the figures would be smaller than this, you know? So I might have to go up to 18 by 24 for that one, just so that I'm not super crammed, but I don't plan on going, like, say as detailed with the eyes in the actual oil painting. I'll probably take some cues from Frazetta on that, and just do kind of the bare minimum for the eyes to read, you know? Okay, my friends, I'm gonna call it for tonight. And see about, you know, getting some sleep. Raid tonight. I don't have the brain capacity to hang around for the raid. So I will be back on Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. I'll look over this camera. Let's move this back. Let's move it back. Not looking too shabby. I think once this dries and I can lay clean colors over the top, it'll start to pop a bit more. So I'll get back to it Monday. I might do a little bit over the weekend, but we'll see. So until Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific. I hope y'all have a fantastic Friday and a lovely weekend. And we'll catch you next week. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Wasn't too stressful. All right, folks.